Cryptids, creatures that are rarely seen and never captured. What are they? Are they real? And do they want something from us? Join me and Swamp Dweller as we go on the hunt for cryptids.
The Zanfretta abductions.
On the frigid night of December 6 of 1978, night watchman Pierre Zanfretta was on the routine patrol in the village of Toragilla when he stumbled into a series of terrifying encounters with extraterrestrial beings that would make him question everything he had come to believe about reality. Zanfretta's upsetting tale began when his car inexplicably lost power en route to a client's unoccupied home. The confused security man glanced through his window and spied 4 lights moving in the garden of the house he was expecting. Assuming the beams were emanating from the flashlights of prowlers, Zanfretta climbed from his car with his revolver and flashlight in hand. The watchman silently slipped through the gate and crept along a rock wall in an effort to get the jump on what he still assumed were ordinary burglars. Just as he prepared to leap out to confront these trespassers, felt something touch his shoulder from behind. Zanfretta spun around, but instead of finding a human criminal, he saw an entity that he can only describe as an enormous, green, ugly, frightful creature with undulating skin, as though they were very fat or dressed in loose, gray tunics, no less than 10 feet tall. It was flanked by 2 smaller beasts. Zanfretta would include more explicit descriptions of these beings, including hairy, greenish skin, horns on the side of their faces, and yellow triangular eyes and red veins embedded in their foreheads. He also described a unique, self-illuminated mechanical apparatus that fit over their mouths. Zanfretta was so stunned by the sight, he ran and sprinted away from these bizarre brutes. As he approached his dead car, he insisted that a brilliant light loomed up above him. Zanfretta looked over his shoulder to see a massive, triangular shape, which blinded him. He shielded his eyes with his arm and stared in awe at this gigantic UFO ascending with a hiss and blasted him with a searing wave of heat. Struggling, the guard finally made it back to his car, where he contacted his security company. The radio operator testified that his friend's incoherent babbling consisted of descriptions of human beings. "They aren't men. They aren't men. My God, are they ugly?" An hour later, 2 other guards discovered Zanfretta lying on the frost-covered ground. Shockingly, his clothes were still warm. The guards also discovered horseshoe-shaped markings on the ground behind the house that seemed to have been made by an extremely heavy object. No less than 52 Torgiglia residents reported spying a bright light emanating over the same area. In the months followed, the watchman claimed to have been confronted by these and other creatures numerous times, and huge footprints and other tangible pieces of evidence were even found at the scenes of these alleged abductions.
2008, Northern Ohio. My cousin invites me to go camping on a trip to see some hidden state park or whatever, and I happily agree because hey, Ohio has to be better than Indiana, right? So I drive out to their house, and we pack up our tent and food and head out to his truck for a few hours into the boondocks. After miles of twists and turns, the road gets bumpy, and I wake up and we're off the grid, like dirt road and grass off the grid. We park the truck and head up into the hills for a couple of miles, and make base camp at the top of a hill, looking out onto a valley with thick trees on the edges across from us. Nightfall comes fast, and when we're around the fire, I ask them what the park is called. Upon hearing me, they break out into laughter and say that we're not in a park at all, but on native land, and that we were camping upon some sacred hill. I call bullshit, but they name a tribe which at the time sounded legit enough for me not to argue against it. It was 1 AM at this point, and we were just chatting around the fire and eating marshmallows, when out of nowhere, we hear a bone-chilling scream. We all grew up hunting and have heard our fair share of animal calls and howls, and yet none of us could agree upon what we heard. If anything, I would say a screaming fox, or maybe a wolf because of how the howl was carried. It goes on a few more times, and our laughter soon becomes uneasy, as it appears to be getting closer to us. The fifth time we hear the scream, it sounded as if it was just coming from down the valley. We all look down in that direction, and I kid you not, out of the tree line, we see what looks like a gangly, thin, naked man, who from this far away seems way too tall to be normal. This thing takes off in a sprint on 2 legs at us, and without any hesitation, the 3 of us run off the hill and back into the woods towards the car. Being night, it only made the escape more terrifying. As we reach the bottom of the hill, we hear the scream again, but this time it's from where the camp was. None of us turn back to check nor to see if the other 2 are near. After the fastest 2 miles in my life, we get to the truck and floor it off the land to the nearest McDonald's, where we sat until dawn with no words to each other. We agreed to go back in the morning to grab our things. We do, and to our surprise, nothing had been moved or taken, which seems weird, because if someone was trying to mess with us, they would have trashed the place or at least taken something. We drove back to my uncle's where we tried to joke about it and just move on. This stuff never bothered me until I saw my friend playing the game until dawn, and I became uneasy and how it looked like what we saw. That stuff is real, and I know it's out there.
I'm 23 and from Australia. I've had a lot of bizarre things happen to me over the years, but despite this, I like to think of myself as a fairly rational person. I don't necessarily think I'm dealing with aliens here. I think it's more likely that this stuff is weirdly just a part of a human condition that we don't understand. But my entire life I've had strange abduction-like experiences, the worst of which, and the one that stands out as the most different, was one that happened mid-last year. The first thing I remember is the sensation of some cylindrical object pressing into the center of my spine. At first this was merely uncomfortable, but as it went on my back began to bend under the pressure. It was really quite painful. I don't know if my eyes were closed before this point, or if I just couldn't see, but my vision returned, and standing over me were 4 small, wrinkled brown beings. They were ugly and had eyes that seemed slightly too small. I remember one of them grabbing some sort of tube, and then I was back in my room. My back continued to ache for the rest of the night. I can't recall seeing these things at any other point. There was a similar gray being in my room on another occasion.
I'm not really into the paranormal, but I had an experience about 10 years ago that I've never been able to explain. It was fall of 2006 or 7, and I was making the 2-hour drive home from university along rural country roads in northern Minnesota. The roads along this route are paved, and ditches are well maintained. The land just off the right-of-way is forested. For anybody curious about which road I was on, it's Country Road 58, near 2 Inlets, Minnesota. I was in a section of roadway with nice long winding turns, and it was very fun driving. It was just dark enough at the time to need headlights to see, and as I came around one of these winding turns, the beam of my headlights caught a humanoid figure standing in the long grass in the ditch, maybe 50 feet in front of my car. As my car turned and my light shone on it, the thing strode gracefully but quickly, the 20 or 30 feet into the woods just off the right of way. This thing was at least 7 feet tall, taller than a normal man, but standing naturally erect. Definitely not an animal on its hind legs. It was grey with no hair and very thin enough to see its joints. Similar to that stereotypical grey alien type figure. It walked so quickly and gracefully, I'd never seen anything like it. Wildlife typical to that area include bear, deer, rabbits, and the occasional wolf, but I can't think of anything that explains what I saw. After I saw the thing, I contemplated turning the car around to have another look or maybe just find some tracks, but I was in full-on freak-out mode, so I just kept driving. I was pretty shaken up when I made it home. I'll state for the record that I am a Christian, and that I've tended to wonder if I saw some kind of demon or evil spirit. From the feeling it gave me, I certainly don't feel that I saw an angel.
I read a book in communion while in junior high school in the 80s. It is an exciting read about one man's alien abduction experiences. It gave me nightmares for years, and I still have them every now and then. I never believed that I had been actually abducted. Also, the most recent times I had such nightmares, I was taking ZQuil to help me sleep. Well, fast forward to adulthood, when something happened that really freaked me out, and it still gives me chills today. I was married and in my late 20s, just doing the standard live life kind of thing. I had never told my wife about the crazy dreams. No real reason for not telling her. The subject just never came up. She was the type to laugh at anything paranormal, especially the type I am about to describe. About 3 years into our marriage, she saw something that really freaked her out. She gets physically sick if I bring it up, so she won't really talk about it anymore. One Friday night, we went to dinner and planned on getting to a movie. We were both really tired, so we decided to just chill and go to bed early instead of going to the theater. Around 4 a.m., I woke up to her freaking out. She had violently jumped out of the bed and slammed the bedroom door shut, making more than enough noise to startle me. The bedroom light was on as well, which was odd as the only light switch was close to my side of the bed.
And I didn't turn it on.
I thought maybe we had a break-in, so I quietly grabbed my phone and went to dial the police. She stopped me before I could and told me what had caused her to go bonkers. All the while, she was shaking with fear and covered with sweat. This was the only time I have seen her stutter while talking. She stuttered for about a week after this happened. She said that she woke up because she heard me talking and noticed I was sitting up in bed. Naturally, she thought I was talking to one of the kids, so she turned her head to face me and see what the issue was. This is the part that freaked me out. She said that there were 4 different creatures standing near the foot of the bed. She described them as the typical gray aliens. She tried to stay as still as she could, squinting her eyes as to appear asleep. She went on to say that they were just silently facing me, but I was talking in a manner that would indicate a conversation was taking place. She described the conversation as though I was agitated and was trying to tell them I did not agree with whatever they were telling me. I even raised my voice a few times at one of them in particular. This one appeared to be the one in charge. This conversation went on for around a minute before they noticed she was awake. Once they noticed she was awake, one of them approached her and instantly stopped talking mid-sentence. Then I got out of bed and followed them out of the room. The one that approached her just looked at her and she fell back asleep as though something was controlling her, forcing her to sleep again. Then instantly, I was back in bed, asleep as though it had never happened, and she was now wide awake. She described that part as missing time, similar as to being under for surgery. She had trouble sleeping for weeks and was constantly checking on the kids during this time. I have no memory of any of this. What she described is very similar to the nightmares that I have experienced over the years. I still haven't told her about my nightmares. I just wouldn't help the situation. I didn't intend to make a post this long, but I feel that the story required the context.
Hey guys, it's Mort here, and thank you so much for listening. Firstly, I want to thank Swamp Dweller for helping me out with these stories. If you enjoyed his portion of the video, be sure to show him some love and subscribe to his awesome channel. Which one of these stories is your favourites? And what would you say these creatures are? The one about the campers on the sacred native ground to me sounds like a Wendigo. But what do you guys think? Would you agree? Let me know in the comments section below. And if you enjoyed the video, please remember to smash that like button and subscribe, as you won't want to miss what's next. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter and Instagram @TheMortisMedia. But for now guys, I'm going to sign off. Stay awesome, and I'll see you in the next one.